Hello everyone, my name is Marc Sabatella with Mastering MuseScore. Welcome to the MuseScore Café. So this is my weekly series that I do where I take some aspect of MuseScore and show you how to do various different things, take your questions, and kind of just get you a feel for how the program works. And I've pinned a link up at the top to my site where you can check out the online courses I offer, the actual Mastering MuseScore course, as well as my theory courses, the counterpoint course that I'm almost done with. I'm hoping to maybe be able to launch that in a couple of weeks, so you'll be hearing more about that too in the Music Masterclass. So today I'm starting something that maybe will be a new regular feature. Maybe I'll do one a month or something. I don't know. We'll see. Because I have a feeling people are going to enjoy this. I'm just going to take a piece of music and enter it and see what happens. So instead of having one particular topic like tempo, say, and exploring everything having to do with tempo, I'm going to just see what this page of music brings and what it actually requires. So that's what I'm going to do today. So, welcome everyone, and I'll always love to see all the different check-ins from around the world where people are. I'm seeing some people I haven't seen before, so maybe the topic actually caught some interest. That's cool. And by the way, I saw a question early on, Colleen, you were talking about installing on Mac. No, I actually, that's the one system I don't use. I've used Windows a lot, and I've used Linux some, and currently, my main computer is a Chromebook, which runs Linux underneath, kind of on the side, kind of weirdly, but it works. But I've essentially never used a Mac, other than just if I have a student on a Mac, I'll attempt to demonstrate something on it and struggle. So I put a question on the community site. If you haven't already joined the community and taken part in conversations, highly recommended. So I put something on the community site earlier today. I did this kind of on short notice because I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or not. But I'll probably, if I do this more, I'll get in the habit where I basically let people select the music for me to enter, because I had a couple ideas in mind, but I wasn't attached to them. So someone Mirabilis, I'm just going to pronounce it that way to kind of rhyme with parabola, has put in a suggestion of a chart that looks really useful. So I'm going to give you that link. I'm going to post that link here so you guys can all access what I'm accessing. And then I got to talk about the logistics of actually how we're going to do this. So the piece is, let me post it into the chat. Let me pop out my chat first. Pop out chat. So here comes the piece. Hello, chat, pop out. All right. Here we go. All right, so this is the piece here, and when you click that link, which I'm about to do, it opens a page on Imslp, the Internet Music Sheet. What the heck does it stand for? Sheet Music Library something. I should know what it stands for, but I don't. But it's this great resource, and this is actually totally not the right link, so ignore me. I must have somehow gotten it wrong. So that's okay. I have the page here, and I'm just going to paste the direct link. So this link works. The video is a minute behind the chat. That's unfortunate. Usually it's just a few seconds. So this guy doesn't seem to work. So I'm going to try this. International Music Score Library Project. Thank you. So this is the piece that I am going to be entering, and I'm just going to take a page from it, and I'm going to do a quick scan down here to see if there's any reason not to just start at the beginning. A particular interesting thing here is that there is a time signature change if I skip later, but there's some stuff happening at the beginning that I feel like, well, if I don't get the beginning in there, it's not going to be set up right anyhow. So I'm just gonna start from the beginning. So this logistic thing that I mentioned that I really need to deal with is that I my computer monitor isn't really big enough to let me have both the music that I'm copying and MuseScore open at the same time comfortably. So when I do enter music directly from IMSLP or wherever, which I do fairly often, because I'm constantly mining IMSLP for musical examples to use in my online courses. So I'm very often entering some of those excerpts from them. I will often just pull up a second screen, and I don't even have two monitors. I just got a second lap. It's actually just a glorified tablet, a tablet with a keyboard attached. And I will bring up the PDF on the tablet and just look at it next to me. I find that to be really comfortable, but it doesn't help you nearly as much. So I am going to at least make the attempt to set this up, and you can see how it works. So by the way, as far as the whole Mac business goes, no, Chromebook is its own thing. There's Windows, there's Mac, and there's Chrome. Just those are basically Chrome OS. Those are Linux is its own operating system, but Linux doesn't sort of come with its own hardware thing like Windows. I guess Windows doesn't come with its own hardware either. Like Mac OS is always Apple. Chrome always comes from Google, but it could run on lots of different machines. Same with Linux. Same with Windows. So anyhow, Chromebook is a Chromebook. It's not a Mac. So I'm going to try to do something here to try to make the best use I can of my own screen real estate. And I'm going to open this in a separate tab, and I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm going to kind of just size it in a way that I think is going to work for me. In this case, I have it sized so that it's just showing me one system. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do that the whole time, but I'm going to do it at least part of the time. And now I'm going to flip back over to MuseScore, and I'm going to create a new score. So I know I want a new score. And now, because I'm still like just getting a big picture of this, I'm going to want to get some of the big picture stuff in here. Flora's Queen, John Stainer. Flora's Queen, John Stainer, and the all this other information that's in here, JFR Stainer, which I guess is telling me that someone wrote the lyrics and someone wrote the music, and they're either both John Stainer or one of them is a different Stainer, a son or a brother or a father or something. I'm not sure. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm not going to worry about copying every last bit of the formatting of this, every last bit of the text. Now, there is some copyright information on here, but of course, it is no longer under copyright, so it is not actually like legally appropriate to include an outdated copyright message. Ramblus, you're actually, I know, big on the copyright stuff, and maybe you have a sense of that, but I almost never copy outdated copyright messages. So the yeah, I'm going to set up my score now. And yes, it's true that a real PDF viewer will often get better quality, but it's good enough for now, and it's simple. So I think I am just going to deal with it. The only thing that I had any qualms about is when I did reduce this down, I've got all this wasted space for all the Chrome business here that I really don't care about. But yeah, I'm not going to worry. Okay, so what I want are two sopranos, a contralto, tenor, two basses, and piano, right? So I'm going to continue to just flip back and forth between them, I think, because I really, if I try to make MuseScore, first of all, I can't make MuseScore, yes, I can make it smaller while a dialog's open. So I actually do this. but I don't like working with MuseScore that small. But we'll see. At least I'll get my score wizard here while I can see the score. All right, so this is what I have. I'll go on, and none of the templates are going to work exactly. So I could start with a choral template and modify it. And I think I'm going to do that because it's going to at least make the instrument order correct, and it might set a few other useful defaults for me. So I'm going to say that this is SATB plus piano, which it kind of is. I'm going to start with that. Now, I will tell you something. I almost never select a key signature or a time signature in the wizard. Why? Because MuseScore remembers that for the next score, and the chances that my next score is going to use the same one are next to nothing. So I just go to finish. And yes, my score is tiny because I have it set to page width and I have all this other stuff open. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But I am going to come to, I'm going to go to Add Instruments, and I'm going to also open, it's not Add Instruments. See, I always use the shortcut. I don't remember where the instruments is in the menu. It's under Edit Instruments. And I want to add now another soprano. So I come to Vocals, I add another soprano, and I'm going to add another bass, and I'm going to then rename some things. The naming isn't going to happen here. So what I can do right now is I'm readjusting the size of my window. And again, the things that I'm doing fiddling with window widths, I'm doing mostly because, I'm trying to demonstrate and let you see what I'm doing. But realistically, it doesn't reflect how I would really do it. I'd have a separate display here, but it's just hard to. I could try to do that and share that, I guess, but it's still going to cover the. It's going to cover the MuseScore window for you. So I'm just going to make this work. All right. So, oh yeah, focus follows mouse. Yeah, you're right. I could probably enable that somehow. I'm not used to it, so I'm not I'm not going to mess myself up with that. So I have soprano. I have two sopranos here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. There's a number of ways to get to the staff properties, but a relatively new one that I like is double-clicking the staff name. That's kind of nice. So I can call this soprano 1, and then you can see already that on the next system, it's not bothering with abbreviations for the staff names. Personally, that's going to bother me a little bit, so I'm gonna keep them. I can always delete them later. So I'm going to call that S1. Now, if I want to then change the name of some of these other staves, you can use this down arrow within the dialog. But important safety tip here: hit apply first, or it doesn't remember the changes. Why? I don't know, because I didn't implement it. But you must apply, and then you can hit the down arrow. Oh, also I should change soprano 1 there under part name. This is what shows up when I actually generate parts, if I do, and it also shows up in the mixer, I think. So there we go. So now I'm going to move down to the next one, and this is soprano 2, 2, and I guess I'm using Roman numerals. Did I use a Roman numeral on the other one? I already forgot. So I'm going to go back up. Roman. Yes. Okay. So S2, S2. Obviously, I missed one there. So apply. And now down to the next staff. It's not alto. It's contralto. Now, I already see something that I'm wondering about here. It's written in treble clef. I have a feeling it's meant to sound an octave lower than written, because that would be a typical way older music would write alto parts. Treble clef, but also tenor parts for that matter. And I don't see an 8 on this clef, but I gotta believe that that's the case. I am going to change in MuseScore my clefs, or I'm going to change the transposition, one or the other. I think I'm going to do it by changing the clef because I want this to look more. I'm not going to try to copy every detail of the original. I'm going to make it kind of readable by modern musicians. So instead of A, I'll call it CA, apply, going down, tenor is tenor, that's fine, going down more. This is bass 1, bass 1, B1, apply, going down again, bass 2, bass 2, B2, apply. All right, the piano, it says piano for practice only. Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to worry about that. I could put that in. I don't need to. So I now have my score kind of set up the way I actually am going to want it. So one of the things that I do a lot, I didn't used to do this, but I'm constantly opening and closing the inspector and the palettes to sort of optimize my screen real estate. Sometimes I set up a workspace that's the way I want it to be, but that's not what I'm going to do here. And why, I don't know. I'm just calling it as I see it. So what do we, I'm just going to make sure I check on yeah, F8, F9, that's what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, absolutely. So it says, I see, Marvelous, you're saying that the alto is not actually down. And okay, now when I look at this, it is. But actually, it is the case that alto is often written in that clef. I've been transcribing a lot of Renaissance music. Because not just because of my counterpoint course, but also there's a Renaissance ensemble at a school where I teach. And I've mentioned before this blind student that I had who kind of helped do a lot of the testing of the accessibility features in MuseScore. She sings in that Renaissance ensemble, and she sings alto. And I'm taking printed music and entering it into MuseScore for her so that she can have MuseScore part to read using her screen reader. And yeah, it's usually written in alto transpose clef. But this one looks like not, because this B is already low. I'm going to keep scrolling down because look at this alto. This going way up here to this B. I'm actually doubting. I'm not so sure. That really is meant to be at this pitch, but I'm gonna believe it for now because it's at least below soprano 2. If I ever saw it looking like that third staff was actually above soprano 2, then I would be sure it was an octave transposed. But because it's not, because it's always right below soprano 2, I will believe it is at actual pitch. But I definitely know that transposing clef is a thing. So the tenor already got entered with the transposed clef, right? So I mean, with that, treble with it's a transposing clef, or an octave clef, I would call it. I'm going to close the palettes now with F9, and so I've got a little more room to work with, and this is actually enough that if I switch to continuous view, I should actually be able to work relatively comfortable-ish. Now on that page. So I'm going to start entering some notes now. Here's what I'm going to do. In entering the notes, let's see. There's a question about tenor. Is the convention they sing an octave lower? Well, if you write it in treble clef, yes, that's why we use this clef these days, treble clef with an 8 below. In previous centuries, they didn't always do that. Even in modern times, they don't always do it, but it's pretty typical now that if you write tenor in treble clef, you're going to put the little 8 below it. But we don't always write tenor in treble clef. Often we write tenor in bass clef. Certainly if it's SATB closed score, soprano and alto are on the top in treble clef. Tenor and bass are on the bottom in bass clef. So tenors usually have to learn to read both clefs, but I know some never get good at bass clef. So, in entering this music now, in a lot of music, I would enter just starting with the top staff and work my way down. However, I'm not going to do that on this score for one very important reason. Because of the type of music it is, I can see right away it's contrapuntal. It's got a lot of imitation going on. I'm going to take advantage of that. The tenor and the bass too are the ones that come in first. I'm going to enter that tenor part first, because once I've entered that tenor part, I think I'm going to build a copy it and paste it to some other staves. Now, the imitation is not exact imitation, right? This is starting on an F for the tenor, starting on a B flat for the contralto, or I'll just call it alto. It's transposed, and it's what we call a tonal transposition. In other words, this guy's going up in steps. F, 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 G, G, A. I have no idea if that's really an F, but I actually think it is. Let me enter that first note. So I'm using keyboard shortcuts. I said I was going to turn on my keyboard shortcut display gizmo, so give me a moment to do that. There we go. All right, so 5 for quarter note, dot for the dot, and then F for the F. F, F, G, G, A. So it's going up in steps. The imitation here in the alto is F, D, B flat, B flat, B flat, D, F, D. Okay, I don't know why I'm trying to sing it in that octave, but I am. In any case, it's going up in third. So it's not exact imitation, but the rhythm is basically the same, and I am going to take advantage of that. It looks like bass and contralto are both moving up in thirds and all. So anyhow, I'm not going to worry about the details of who's copying what now. I'm just going to start entering some notes. And so typically, I'm going to go back to note input mode here. F, and then G, G, A, and then back to quarters. F, E, F, and then quarter, B. Ooh, I forgot the key signature. How did I know I forgot the key signature? Because I heard the B natural, and I was expecting to hear a B flat. So I totally forgot the key signature, totally forgot the time signature. Do I do that in real life, or does it only happen when demos? You'll never know. No, it happens in real life, too, I tell you. So I closed the palette, but I don't need the palette to enter key signatures. Shift-K brings me... Oh, look at that. That's kind of cute how it... moves, because my window isn't centered, it's bringing up my demo mode off to the side, so screen key is not doing what I want. Anyhow, 1 flat is my key signature, and the time signature, Shift T, will bring up the time signature window, and apparently I want 2-2. By the way, don't hit the add button there. I make that mistake more often than I would care to admit. And I end up adding another another version of 2.2 to my palette, and then I have to delete it. This is to add custom time signatures to your palette. Merely clicking the time signature is enough to actually add it to your score. All right, so anyhow, B flat. Now, I have that B flat, and go back to note input mode, and then C, and then dotted quarter, D, eighth, D, B flat, G, and that's the end of that system. So, I'm going to hit escape right now. One thing you didn't see me do that I know some of you, well, I don't know if anyone does this, it is possible to enter slurs as you're entering the notes. It is possible. You can press S while you're in note input mode and enter slurs. I'm not in the habit of doing that. I tend to forget that I'm in the middle of a slur, and so I'll forget to press S again to turn it off. So I don't personally do that. However, I do want to get the slurs in before I go too much further, because I want them to copy. I want to have those in there. So I am going to enter my slurs. There's a slur here, and since it's just 2-note slurs, I don't have to select anything but one note. I just press the note and press S, and then the B flat there. Now, I will say, again, the fact that I'm trying to fit everything onto the screen here, I don't always work in continuous view. In fact, I don't normally work in continuous view. Let me show you what I might do normally, and then we'll see if we can make it work. I normally work more in page view, and I start right off by putting in my page break to match where they have it. I don't always do that, but I often do. So this ends up being a little bit smaller until I zoom appropriately, but I feel like maybe this is actually a little more comfortable for me. I put it in continuous view because I was thinking I wouldn't be able to fit a system onto the page conveniently, but Uh, I was wrong. It works just fine this way. All right, so what else do I have here? Clefs, not a problem. Look at old one. Okay. Um, all right. Can I move the enter information? It's hidden by my face. Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't know why. Let me kill this and redo it and see if it shows up any better. It doesn't, and I don't know why. Um, it makes no sense that that's the case, but maybe you just don't need to see my face. So let's make my face go bye bye. So we're gonna make this guy. Actually, we'll just move it over here because move it up here because we're not going to be using the inspector for much. There we go. And then update stream. All right. So now it's going to be up here that you can't see, so I'll try to be conscious that I don't try to work up there. So let's see. Yeah, I wish I could move that demo bar, but I don't know how that program works. It's called Screen Key. There's some sort of command line option that should work for it to make it center, but it normally does center. It's the fact that it's getting confused by my window here, and it's trying to display. It's trying to center around that window for some reason rather than centering around the entire display. And I don't know why that's the case, but it is. And so we're just going to work with it. Okay, so there's that. Let me get my PDF back. So I have this happening because there's lyrics here, and the lyrics are going to be copied also. I actually want to check that because it's not necessarily the case that the lyrics are exactly the same on the imitation, and they're not really exactly the same because I see room for Flora's Queen, then room, room, room. But everyone else doesn't have the room, room, room. The only reason the tenor does is because it came in first. So I'm kind of feeling like it's maybe not going to be worth the trouble of entering lyrics and then fixing them later. So I think I'm going to copy before the lyrics in this case. I want dynamics now, so I do need the palette because I do want the dynamic to be part of the proceedings here. So it's going to be F9 and dynamics, and I want MF. Now you'll notice that it put the MF below the staff, and that's because by default that's where dynamics go. But in vocal music, we don't want the dynamics below. We want them above. So what I am going to do is I'm going to flip it above, and I think I'm going to make it a style setting because most of my staves here are vocal. If I make it a style setting, it's going to apply to all staves. All staves are going to put dynamics above the staff. And so my piano staff, that's not necessarily what I want, but I'll fix the piano when I need to. But at least for the vocal staves, I'm going to get what I want. So I'm going to open up the inspector, and I just want to hear placement. When I pressed X, it flipped it above, and now I'm going to click S for set as style. And now all my dynamics will be above. And now I can close the inspector again and reposition my windows. Yeah, normally this whole business of having to reposition the windows, it's not part of my normal workflow because I would be using two monitors. But, I'm trying. I do this sometimes. I will say I do sometimes do exactly what I'm doing. So, looking at some things here. First, enter the right hand. Oh, Gene, you're brilliant if you're right. Are you right? When it says piano for practice only, then what that's telling me is the fact that it says for practice only tells me that the piano part is actually just identical to the vocal parts. In which case, I think, Gene, you are exactly right that it probably would work that way, except I see things like, well, gee, there's 5 vocal parts right here. D, G, there's 5 vocal parts here and only 4 notes there in the piano. So somehow it's not going to work perfectly. but it was a brilliant idea. I do have to say I hadn't thought of that, but I think it's not actually going to work. And yes, the idea of cheating and entering dynamics on the lower staff, I thought of that also. So I might do that. And it actually looks like they kind of did that here. I mean, not that this was done in MuseScore, but that MF is closer to the bottom staff. But of course, that's because the notes are on the bottom staff. Anyhow, I'm going to try to enter music and not just talk. So I'm going to do this. I have this line. What I'm going to do is now copy it where it needs to go. And I think I don't always do this. So on a piece like this where there's this imitation and it's kind of moving across systems, I might want to copy this line here to where it's going to go. It's going to go to the bass here. It's going to go to bass 2 here. It's going to go to contralto here, and it's going to go to soprano to here. So in doing this, it's actually spilled over onto the second system. And maybe the imitation doesn't continue. I don't know. I'll worry about that later. I'm just going to worry now about my first system. So these, of course, are not the correct pitches, but they're the right rhythms. So I'm going to use a mode I seldom use, but I'm going to use it here. It's repitch mode. So in repitch mode, all I got to do is type the pitches I want, and it's going to keep the same rhythm. So D in this octave, D, G, B. So that's that. And then I can come down to my alto staff, go back to note input mode. It remembers that I'm in repitch mode. Often that's a pain in the butt, but right now it's what I want. B flat down in this octave, B flat, D, F, G. All right, so already I can see the imitation isn't perfect because the G is then followed by a rest. So I'm just going to fix that. All right, and there goes my light timer. And the tenor part's correct. The bass 1 part, go back to note input mode, F, F, A, C, D, and then D, C, B flat, and then the imitation changes. I can see also the imitation change in that there's no slur on this one because he's got 2 different words. So I might have been premature entering that slur thinking I really wanted it to copy everywhere. So the imitation ended. It doesn't end. It doesn't have that B flat. So I'm going to select those couple of notes there, delete them, and enter what I really want, which is I got to go back to. You know what? I'm going to wait to enter those because I'm going to have to switch back to regular note input mode to enter those notes. I want to take advantage of the fact that I'm still in repitch mode here and enter what I want here. That line, the top line of the scan here is faint, but that's only mostly because it's what we call anti-aliasing kicking in, making that line not appear. So that really is an F. So I have F, 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 E, D, D, C. Oh, and then it changes again. All right, so that imitation only bought me so much, but, it was a worthwhile trick to see. Sometimes when I do this kind of music, the imitation is more exact. But typically it's more so in sacred music, in Renaissance music that's like parts of masses or psalm settings, motets, and so forth. Because the idea is you're just singing words everyone knows already. You're singing, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy, Christ have mercy, Lord have mercy. And you can go, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, and stagger a dozen different Lord have mercies on top of each other, and everyone knows exactly what you're singing. So you can have a lot more exact imitation like that with voices cluttering each other if you're singing words everyone knows, and in the Renaissance everyone knew that particular thing. All right, so I got to now go back to regular note input mode. There is not a shortcut to go to switch note input modes, but I defined one. I went at one point to Edit, Preferences, Shortcuts, and step right there. Enter step time mode, and I defined a shortcut there, Control-Shift-N. Not that I do it a lot, but I do it just enough. So Control-Shift-N switches me to step time mode, and now I can enter the actual part here, which is a quarter note, dotted quarter, D, and then eighth, D. And what else I got? I lost track where I was because I'm demoing and talking while I do things, but it's starting right here in the bass 2 part where the imitation stopped. So here, I'm not going to delete what's there first. That's a good thing to know about MuseScore. Everything just overwrites, so I don't need to bother overwriting things. I just enter my notes. B flat, and then quarter note, B flat, A, and then half note, G, and then G. And it kept the slur, which was nice of it, but I don't want it. All right, so I now have the first system done for the vocal parts of the actual notes, except for that one note in the soprano. So half rest, quarter note, G. And because I didn't do a copy-paste, I need to enter the dynamic. Now here's another neat trick. Have I done anything in the palette other than enter MF? No, I haven't, right? So what I know is MF was the most recent thing that I entered. So therefore, I have a shortcut that re-enters the most recent palette entry. It's backslash. And so it redoes the most recent palette. That's a great command to define a shortcut for. Go to Edit, Preferences, and then it's Apply. Apply without a U. Apply Current Palette Element. That command will take whatever the most recent command that you did from the palette, the most recent palette item you added to your score, it will reapply it. I love that command. I use it very often for doing things like adding dynamics across different staves like this, because then once I've added one, I can quickly add the others, even if they don't line up perfectly. It's just really useful for a surprising number of things. All right, so I need to enter the piano part now, and when Gene talked about entering that first and then exploding it, I was like, oh, that almost works, but not quite. I think the same is going to be true when it comes to imploding. Like, in principle, I would be able to just select these 3 staves here, implode them to get the piano part. But in fact, that's not really true, because the piano part here is simplified, right? It's just showing a simple half note on the second measure, when in real life it's 2 half notes and a dotted quarter. So I can't rely on implode in this case, but it is kind of cool. So I'm looking at the comments in here, and yes, I agree. The chances of import PDF working well enough is low enough that it's just, I don't even bother. You're going to spend usually more time fixing the mistakes that happened than just entering the music, if you're fast at entering music. But the thing is, it's also, entering music is easier than fixing mistakes, because the mistakes could be all over the map. They're unpredictable. There might be too many beats in a measure. There might be might be notes on the wrong staff line. There might be things that are supposed to be triplets that aren't triplets, or vice versa. Text markings that gets misinterpreted as a note. I mean, it's crazy the number of things that could go wrong. Notes that end up in the wrong voice because it's not understanding the stem direction properly. Fixing those requires fairly expert knowledge of how to do things, and entering the music from scratch really only requires, you could learn everything that I just did. You can learn in the half hour I've been doing this, right? So I particularly find that out. So yeah, so hopefully you just saw, Michael, that I did define a shortcut, Control-Shift-N, to make that switch happen there. So the backslash, you have to define that yourself. Both those shortcuts, Control-Shift-N and Control-Shift-N for apply current palette element, and the backslash. No, Control-Shift-N for switching to step time, and backslash for apply current palette element. You have to go to that dialog, edit, shortcut, edit, preferences, shortcuts, and define your own shortcuts there. So, all right, so I'm going to enter this piano part, and I'm going to enter this left hand here, and I'm going to enter it top voice first, and it wants to position it right. MuseScore wants to position that right below, right where my demo thing is showing up. So I'm going to do something I almost never do. I'm going to turn off the pan score function because it's causing the score to jump around. When I'm working full screen, I'm fine with it. But now that I'm working with this side of reduced size screen, the jumping around is kind of getting to me. So I'm turning off pan score here on pan score here on the toolbar. It's right next to the metronome. So that pan score button, when I turn it off, means it's not going to move the screen at all as I enter notes. So dotted quarter, I'm entering, oops, I typed D, but I meant to type F. So F, F, then quarters, G, G, and then it's a chord of F and A, and then a quarter note chord of F, A, and then E, C, and then a half note just F. And it says just a half note, but look at this. It's actually a little weird. What happened to the other two beats? Two beats just sort of disappeared, but I'm going to take it at face value, enter the F, and I guess I'll hide the rest. Yeah, I wouldn't have notated it that way personally, but I'll select the rest there, press V, and then the next measure I only need one voice, so it's a G down in that octave, then a G in this octave. And now I will go back to the beginning and switch to voice 2, and F, and then F, quarter, F, E half, D, quarter, D, C, dotted quarter, B flat, eighth, B flat, quarter, A, and that's that. And then I am going to use the trick of adding the dynamic to the bottom staff. It is a nice little trick. Because it's a trick because normally you add the dynamics to the top staff of the piano because you want it to display below that. But because I've changed the style setting to be above the staff, so that all the vocal staffs get the dynamics above, the piano staff is also going to get dynamics above. So I'll just attach to the bottom staff and I get that result. So all I need to do is enter stuff here. It looks like voice 1 is half notes B flat and D, and then quarter notes D, F, and then half note chord down here B flat, D, G. And notice I'm entering these chords bottom up because that's how the keyboard shortcuts work, right? Shift plus D adds a D above the note. So when I'm transcribing music, I always work from the bottom to the top. Now, realistically, when I'm composing, I'm often thinking top down because the top note is probably my melody note, and I'm constantly struggling a little bit because I want to press Shift plus D and it's going to enter the note above, and then I got to press Control down to move it down. That's a fact of life. So like right now, if I try entering the B flat first, oops, it's just a quarter note. If I try to enter the G first, it's going to enter it in the lower octave first of all. But if I enter the G up here and then say now I want a D, I press Shift D, it puts it above, so Control down. And I'm like, now I want a B flat. Shift B flat, puts it above, puts it down. So it's not the ideal workflow if you're kind of composing, thinking top down. That's just the way it is. It's one of the rare cases where I feel like, almost feel like switching to mouse entry or using the piano keyboard to enter some notes. But no, I don't. Almost, though. But what I am going to do is enter the rest of that, D, G, B flat. And I think at that point, I've got this basically in except for the lyrics. So let's come in here and let's see if I've missed something. So, no, there is no difference in Mac OS. I'm not sure what you might be doing off, but you have to first apply a palette element. Um, so you have to actually select something in your score and then click something in the palette. Then after that, just select something in your score and press your shortcut, and it will reapply the same thing. It definitely works. So assuming you define the palette shortcut correctly, it definitely works. So if you're having trouble, maybe post to the support forum and post your score and give the precise steps to reproduce the problem, and we can take a look. All right, so lyrics. I'm starting with that same staff because it came in first. Room for flow dash Ruz Queen exclamation point room. Now here's something I want to find out if they do. Notice that this room is a melisma, but they didn't bother to put the underscore. They didn't bother to put the extension under the E. Well, that's because there's not really room for it. What I want to know is in the rest of the score, no, they do use, what the heck? They're using here they're using the underscore under that syllable, even though there's no melisma. Here they're using the melisma. So basically, they're just using this melisma thing kind of haphazardly, I would say. They're using it when there is an actual melisma and there's room to display it, but they're also just putting it underneath half notes for no good reason sometimes. So I'm just going to enter the dang thing. And MuseScore will display it really short. There might be a style setting to get it to not display that. I know there is for hyphens. I can't remember if there's a way for melisma lines or not. I will discover that later. But I prefer, unless I'm literally trying to do an exact urtext edition or whatever, where I'm trying to copy a handwritten score or an original manuscript exactly. I will try to modernize it, and the modern convention is we are going to show that melisma there. So anyhow, where did I go? Lost track of where I'm at. Oh, that's because I zoomed in a little bit here at one point. I need to zoom back out. Come on, get a reasonable size here. There we go. All right, so what did I got? Room. Oh, this is the wrong system. That's why. That's why I'm not recognizing where I'm at. So I just put in the room. Now I have another room. Exclamation point. And then room exclamation point with melisma. And then room for flow Ruz. Okay, good enough. I think I'm going to enter my other lyrics. I don't know. I'm just going to enter in order of entrance because it's got to be some order, and why not? Room for flow. And you know what? I could actually. I'm going to show you this because I actually would do this. I'm undoing that. I'm going to copy and paste just those lyrics. Room for Flora's Queen. Room. That much. If I click this room, shift click the last room there, copy, and now come to the bottom staff and paste. There, I just copied those lyrics. So I can do that on the other staves too, because I think the other staves have at least part of the same. At least Room for Flora's Queen is the same on all of them. So what happened just now is the last change I just made caused that measure to no longer fit on the page. And I can tell you one thing that's going on. This page size here looks like it's A4 paper or something smaller. Oh, it's letter paper. I'm wrong. It just looked like it was maybe floor. So what I'm going to do is I want to be able to match the match what's going on here a little more. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna shrink my notation a little bit. There's some other things I'm looking at, like, how far are they indenting the staff? Are there other things that I could have done to make this work more? But I'm looking at it and I see that now I'm only fitting one system on the page and I'm only fitting 3 measures on. It feels like I just have too large of notation for the size of my paper. So I'm going to come to page settings and just turn this down a little bit. And this is a temperamental little control, but changing it down to 0.60 still doesn't quite fit a second system on the page. I guess I'll keep going down until it does. Yeah, I don't know how far I really want to go, but 1.4, I'm going to go with it because I can always zoom in to see what I want to see, right? So that's fine. I still have room for Flora's. It's really just room for Flora's Queen without the other room. So room for Flora's. And this lyric here is just room. All right. So at this point, I'm looking at all these things that I just did. Room for Flora's Queen, this is the alto part. The alto part doesn't actually have that note, so I'm deleting it. Room for Flora's, and this guy is not really, the tenor is not room, or bass 2 I should say, it's room space for Flora's. So the question is, are these really so similar that the copy and paste saved me trouble? Or would I have been better off actually just typing the lyrics individually? I don't know. I'm doing it with the copy and paste more for demonstration purposes than anything. I don't know for sure. I think if I were doing this for real, I would have realized pretty early on that the imitation isn't exact enough for the copy and paste to be saving me trouble. And so I would probably have just switched to just typing the lyrics. But I might have used the copy and paste just in small little chunks. Now, I thought I turned off pan score. I did, but apparently it still does some amount of panning even with it turned off, which surprises me. I guess maybe lyrics. I don't know. I didn't expect it to pan at all. Queen I can't see because of my demo thing. So Queen, room. Yeah, that's annoying. Queen, room. Yeah, so that demo thing is actually getting in my way right now, big time, and I don't really understand why the pan score turning that off is not actually working, but so be it. So what am I missing? I'm missing a tempo marking, so I'm going to add that here. Shift Alt T. Try it with something selected. Oh, it's going to the top of the score. That's right. Allegro maturato. And then the thing is, it's got that text repeated above the piano, and tempo markings in MuseScore normally just go on the top staff. I'm going to fake it here by entering it as staff text, Allegro maturato, and then I am going to reopen the inspector for a moment and change the text style to tempo. So at least it uses the same font and all. And of course, their tempo markings are italics. Modern tempo markings are bold. I think I'm going to go with the modern. But if I wanted to change the text style, the nice thing here is if I change the text style once, it changes both places. So I have still managed to not get it to fit both systems on the first page, nor have I finished the page, but I feel like at this point I'm if I try to enter that second page, it would take me a while to talk through it, and yet there's almost nothing new. you get to see a crescendo. So I'll enter a crescendo. So even though I said I was going to enter a page, I think really all I have time for is the half page, because I still got some other details to get in here, like the brackets here, right? So I am going to try to get the page to fit, though, so we'll see. So MuseScore by default decided to use this thin square bracket to connect the sopranos. That is apparently, again, whatever the modern default is, the modern standard. But I am going to at least get rid of that and enter instead curly braces to show you how to do that. I'm going to select the two staves that I want to add it to, open my palette, oops, not that, open the palette, and open brackets, and click curly brace. And then the same thing down when I come to the bases. I will delete. I wonder what happens if I just select the brace and click this. Is it going to change it? Ha! It did. I've never done that before, but there you go. So that was kind of nice. It just changed it into a curly brace. So the only thing that I noticed this one actually says half note equals 80. This one didn't. What does it say? Half note equals 80. So I'm going to enter that in here. Even though that was in there originally and I deleted it, let me show you how you can re-add it. I'm going to press F2 for the special symbols palette, half note, and now I'm done with that palette, equals 80. And I guess I'll put some spaces around it. So there's that. But the other thing that I didn't actually get, sorry, the zoom is a bit temperamental here, is there is this accent mark. At first I thought it was a decrescendo, which really didn't make much sense, but now I just see it as a big accent mark on the soprano's room. So I'm going to pick that, and Shift V enters the accent mark, and it put it below the staff, which would be typical if this were instrumental music, but for the same reason dynamics go above the staff, it's pretty typical. Oops, I pressed V to make it invisible. I meant X to flip it above the staff. So let me click that thing again, and X to flip it up. Now, notice what they've done. They've actually moved the mezzo forte off to the side to save some vertical space here. I want to do that also. So what I'll do is Control left arrow until it's, so it by default moved up higher to avoid the accent. Control left arrow moves it one staff space at a time, and so I'm moving it left until it clears the accent, and then it falls down automatically. So so do I need to change the tempo in the inspector? That's actually a good question, because I actually entered it originally as 80, but it was quarter note equals 80. No, I think it actually entered originally as 80. So I think it's actually going to happen to be correct. But you're right, because I've deleted the marking from it, I should turn off follow text and set it to 160. The tempo in the inspector is always in quarter notes, as far as I know. So I believe, even though its half note is 80, it's quarter note 160. Yeah, let me actually stop it, and now we're going to watch it full screen and listen to it. Yeah, all right, that sounds about right. I mean, I don't know the piece, but it all sounded good, so it's probably not too bad. It did say the piano is for rehearsal purposes only. Sorry, light timer. So I'm going to reopen the mixer, which I think I had open briefly, and mute the piano part. And listen to it again. So the next question that comes up, I said I'm really only going to have time for this first system because I'm not done. Let's see. The reason I can't fit two systems on here, if you look at the original again, let me shrink this down, they're really going with some pretty tight spacing here. Look how small the space is between the staves. They've actually got a fair amount of space on top, but I think the page actually stops there. I think this is just white from the scan or something. I'm not sure. So they've got everything placed really tightly. And like, look how tight the word flora is above this note room here. And I don't know why that room is stem up. Makes no sense. Well, I guess they're using an older convention where you make that B flat, make that note be stem up. I guess it's a D. It's bass clef because the next note is stem up also. That's an older convention also. I'm not going to use that. But that's this passage right here. They're using the convention where that note would be a stem up to match the note it's actually connected to. Yeah. But notice how much space MuseScore is allowing here. It wants there to be more space. I'm going to tell it I don't want that much space below my lyrics because I want to try to squish this down more. So I'm going to go to the style dialog, Alt-O, style, and now I'm going to come to lyrics, and I'm going to reduce that minimum bottom margin. Haha, look what that did. Just reducing the bottom margin to 1. And they have theirs really tight. So I'm going to actually go all the way down to half a space. Oh, and while I'm there, was there an option to set a minimum melisma? No. You can for the hyphens, but not for the melisma lines. Yeah, I kind of thought that was the case. So anyhow, I have now managed to get 2 systems on this page. Now, as we actually enter stuff onto the second system, it may turn out that I need to make things smaller still, do some more adjustments. But anyhow, I just showed you a useful adjustment. So, yeah, and so also, regarding copying from IMSLP, the reason I like copying from IMSLP is those are original editions. I trust them, right? That's really how it was published. I might find someone who posted it to MuseScore. I might find someone who made a MIDI file. I might find any number of things, but who knows what mistakes they made along the way? Who knows if they're working from the same edition as the one I'm looking at? So, and the one I'm looking at is the one I'm looking at. That's the one I want. So I have on occasion tried finding music XML files, finding MIDI files, finding MuseScore files of pieces, and when I look at them, it takes me as long to proofread them and figure things out as just to enter my examples myself sometimes, and to find the dang MIDI file. The time it takes to find the MIDI file, I could have entered the thing. It's like I just spent an hour entering this music. That's because I'm talking through it. I have to say, if I did one of these where I didn't talk and I just entered music, I would have done that in about 5 minutes. Really, 5 minutes for that is about right. So anyhow, that's the story. All right, so I'm looking at comments and seeing that it looks like I'm caught up. I've got that first system in there. I've got all the markings I want. I feel pretty good about where I'm at. I think I am gonna call it here. So I want to thank everyone for being here for this little experiment. And yeah, it's a useful thing. Oh yeah, because I turned off pan score, my control home doesn't actually go to the home. So that's something to know. Pan score has to be on for that net for navigation shortcuts to actually work. So let's play out. Minus 60. I'm trying to set the master volume so I can talk over it. So again, thanks everyone for being here in this episode of the MuseScore Café. It's trying something a little different, just entering some music and seeing what comes up. And we got to see some different things of copy and paste, different things of page formatting, different things of setting style settings and all whatnot, and entering notes, entering lyrics. You got to see me fiddling with trying to get 2 screens on at once, which in real life doesn't happen. I don't worry about that. I just use 2 separate screens. But, we don't always have that luxury. And so, yeah, I have been known to set up my 2 screens, and I struggle a little bit. So, join me every Wednesday when I do some version of talking about MuseScore. Join me on Thursdays when I talk about creating music and actually talk about composing music, arranging music of your own. And that's called the Music Masterclass. Same kind of a format, but I will be looking at music that you all submit via the community. So by all means, join the community if you haven't already. Check out the pinned link at the top where the link to my school is, and you can sign up for my courses, because there's really a lot I've got available to help you learn how to create music with MuseScore. So that said, I will see you all next time. Thanks a lot, everyone. Goodbye.